fit the fan kind of scenarios. If there's going to be civil unrest or the potential for civil unrest, then you need to make sure that you can find ways to get back to your place of shelter safely, okay? So in the case of the snowstorm, you want to avoid, if at all possible, streets and roads that have steep hills on them, okay? Typically, vehicles don't like to stop when you have a very steep hill and a lot of snow, okay? So plan your routes accordingly, okay? It may take you a little longer to get back, but it's safer in the long run. So in cases, so some other situations, so like earthquakes, potential for roads to be damaged during an earthquake are pretty great. So in the case of earthquakes, try to find locations that don't have a lot of overpasses, or that you don't have to travel on an overpass. Elevated roads of any kind you want to try to avoid, because typically those are not going to be elevated for very long. So these are all the things that you want to think about. Where are you going to be when this event occurs? And then how are you going to get to your safe location? Make sure you know that route, okay? Practice that route. I highly recommend that you use the geospatial tools that we talked about and actually plot different routes in ways that you can get home. Using a topographic map, again, we can look at the contour lines. If we have contour lines that are really close together, then those are roads that you don't want to pass on, because those are going to have steep slopes on them, okay? So a map is really handy, especially if you're not familiar with the area between where you are going to be and where you're going to take shelter, okay? The other thing that you want to think about are potential rendezvous places, or what in the Army we call rally points. So, for example, if something happens and you are unable to get past a certain location, or it becomes too dangerous to travel, find a spot that you can safely hold up until the event has passed. In the case of the snowstorm, until the snow has actually stopped and they've started maybe clearing some of the roads and stuff, okay? It could be like, if you have a bad thunderstorm or hurricane or something, a lot of the roads may be damaged so that you may not be able to get through. In some cases, civil unrest may have engaged, and if it has, then you don't want to pass through certain neighborhoods, especially like places in California and Virginia and some other ones where there's a lot of gang activity, okay? Because you don't want something to happen, your car break down, you get stuck or whatever in an area where there's going to potentially be hazards to your health, okay? That's part of that situational awareness thing, being aware of what's going on around you, but being aware to the point that you can avoid that particular locations. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about capabilities and resources, okay? This is where you're going to make a list of the resources that you have. So in this case, first off, we need to identify. So we've identified that we need 2 months worth of food. So basically, write out what 2 months worth of food looks like, okay? This food should be food that you would normally eat. It's not like, you don't want to go, if you do not eat dehydrated or freeze-dried food on a daily basis, or at least periodically, you don't want all of your supplies to be dehydrated food and freeze-dried food, okay? Because that'll be a shock to your system, and your system's already being shocked just because of the event itself, okay? So whatever that food is, longer-term food for longer-term situations, freeze-dried is good. Canned food, home canned food, um, all of this, fresh fruits, vegetables, meat, all of that stuff. Now, in the case of this snowstorm, now, one of the benefits of a snowstorm, if you want to call it a benefit, is the fact that it is typically cold when you have a snowstorm. So even if the power goes out, you can take your food, put it into coolers, and then stick it outside, whether it's on your balcony if you're in an apartment, whether it's just out in the garage if it's an unheated garage, or you can put it out in the snow and pack snow around it and help keep it cool. So that's one of the things that you can do with the snowstorm. Now, if it's a summer time, then all bets are off. It's a whole different can of worms. But make a list of all the food that you need. Okay, then make a list of the food that you actually have on hand. Okay, so basically you're going to do an inventory of everything in your refrigerator, your pantry, your freezer, your cellar, wherever you keep your food and store the food. Okay. Then once you have these two lists, you compare the two lists. So buy then the things that you say you need for this 2 months worth of supply that you don't already have in your pantry. That's the list that you do, or that's the list that you need to work on. Once you have that, prioritize the items. Okay. Some people may prioritize a trail mix because trail mix is something that you can snack on. It's high in protein. It's also a good source of some vitamins. I recommend that you get stuff that's organic or that you've actually grown yourself. But, this is the chance to get ahead of the game, okay, where you don't have to play catch up later. And not everybody's going to be able to afford, top of the line kinds of food, and that's fine. Okay. In this particular situation, again, we are looking at a 2-month period. In 2 months, it's not going to kill you. Okay. If you're looking at more long term, or if you're looking at, hey, stuff has hit the fan kind of scenario, the end of the world as we know it kind of a scenario, one of the things that you're going to have to be able to do is reproduce your own food, okay, or produce your own food. So that means you don't need seeds. Now, those seeds, I highly recommend that you get heirloom seeds, okay? Now, this is not for the snowstorm. This is for a situation in which that civilized veneer that, if you've heard more than one of my videos, you've heard me say a time or two, but this is for situations in which things are not going to come back to normal. So like, for example, 6-month grid down. 6-month grid down, unless you have, a year's worth of food for everybody in your family, you're going to have to create your own food. And if it's 6 months grid down, it may be a lot longer than 6 months before that power systems come back and everything comes back to normal, where you can actually go to the store and buy resupply stuff. So you're going to have to probably grow some of your own crops. Okay. I recommend if you do that you at least have a greenhouse as large as you can make one. But the source for that stuff needs to be heirloom seeds, because we want to get into having food that is not only good for us, tastes good, but is not going to cause harm to us. And if you're buying just normal seeds, they may not be the best for you. Okay, so that's why I say focus on heirloom products. That's going to be the best for you, and then those are the things that you'll grow. The other thing that you can do is to identify potential workarounds. So, for example, meet